Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to today's Growth Engineering Meetup. And welcome here on site, and also welcome all the remote listeners or who is joining remotely. Today, the topic of this meetup is PLG, or product-led growth, and we have our expert panelists joining us here. Before I will pass the word to them and let them introduce where they are coming from and what's their background in PLG. My name is Michael. I'm in Director of Engineering at Product Board. I'm with Product Board since, I don't know, 4 years ago, something like that. And early on, I also led one of our early attempts to do PLG at Product Board. So together with Alex, we were actually working on our initial attempt. And yeah, so now it's time to pass the mic to Alex.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex. I'm software engineer in Product Board, and I've been around in company for 7 years. So it's quite a journey. About my experience in growth, I was starting the team from scratch, I guess 3 years ago, and I have to say that thanks to Product Board, we had a great opportunity to work with experts from North America, from the people from the companies like Box, Dropbox, or currently the SurveyMonkey. And we learned a lot. We learned some experiences, and I hope that this is something that we can bring back to the community here in Prague.
Thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Juraj. Good to meet you all. Um, I co-founded a company called Better Stack. We call you when the website goes down. So we alert the right person on your team about an issue and give the engineer all the information they need to fix the issue as quickly as possible, whether it is metrics, logs, or traces. And so myself and PLG, I was building software for the past 15 years, and nobody used that software. And that's not a great place to be at, right? So at some point I was like, maybe I should learn a little bit about this marketing thing to get some users, get some revenue in. This was ages ago. Turns out when an engineer learns about marketing, you're very close to growth engineering. So I'm excited to talk about biology.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ondra, and I am currently Director of Engineering at Cisco. And previously, I used to be a co-founder and CTO at SmartLoop that was acquired roughly 3 months ago by Cisco. If you do not know SmartLoop, SmartLoop is a product analytics tool. We specialize in observing what your users are doing in a visual way and gathering data around the interactions for both the website applications as well as mobile. And the reason why Cisco acquired the company was that they have product of their own that's called AppDynamics that's focused on infrastructure monitoring, and they want to cover not only infrastructure analytics, they also want to cover the front-end part where end users are interacting with the applications, and we are there to help them achieving what they call full-stack observability.
Cool. Thank you very much for your introduction. And I expect that we have many various backgrounds here, many different people. So let me warm us up a little bit and discover who we have in the audience so we can tailor the content the best for you. It should be interactive. It shouldn't be like, us speaking. So we'll try to tailor the content as much as we can as we move forward. So first question to start with, just, we will try raising your hands, and yeah, unfortunately on the remote end, this is very hard to do, but at least here on site, please raise your hand if you ever heard about product-led growth before today. Okay, cool. So we have some people that are quite new to product-led growth, which is great. So we hope that we will also, help you understand what it is all about. And coming to the next stage, who was working in a company that actually had something like PLG motion in place or was trying to implement any kind of PLG strategy? Okay, fewer people, but still we have some here, which is also great. And the last question is if somebody from this group was directly involved in that PLG team. So do we have any practitioners? Approximately 5 here. Great. Perfect. So how we will actually become more interactive, how you can interact with us, how we can suggest what we are going to talk about. We have Slido here, so do not hesitate to use it anytime. I will be watching it. I will be asking your questions on the fly as you're asking. First thing to do to test if it actually works is if you can scan the code and post one thing you hope to take away from this panel discussion. So that would be great to understand what is your expectation, and also we will bring you into Slido, so it's gonna be more easy for you to ask questions later. Cool. And while you're doing that, I will give you a quick introduction. As we saw, we have a few people that don't know about product-led growth that much. So I hope that I will clarify it a little bit for you. And also, before I will pass the mic, I also hope that we will have like a variety of different opinions here on the panel. So this is just my understanding of what product-led growth is, and maybe it will be different to what other folks will be talking about. But if I may start with a very simple analogy for you to better imagine what it is. Like if you're building a house, like product engineering is typically trying to build like a solid foundations that the house will stand on, then pick up very durable materials. They will then carefully compose house from, and also focus on creating house based on the requirements and expectations of the homeowners to best fit what they want from such a house. So, for instance, have like enough space to meet with other people. But what if nobody is coming to visit them? That's probably job for growth engineering, and growth engineering would probably in that case find very creative and usually non-conventional way how to make that house more attractive for other people. So maybe we should paint it in a different color to bring more attention. We should, I don't know, organize some events for the neighborhood to, bring people into the house, or um, I don't know, adding some nice flowers around. It can be a variety of different ideas, but important is that those are experiments, and we don't know whether they will be successful or not. We need to, try it and see how does the result look like. So, growth hackers are usually using various different strategies to drive attention to what is the desired goal. And when it becomes a success, product teams are adopting the tactics, and it's becoming part of the core product. When it comes to how these teams are working in the practical way, I think that growth, because of the nature of what they're doing, they might even write a lot of code that is only meant to stay very short term. So approximately, based on some statistics I found on the web, 40 to 70% of code is a throwaway in case of these experiments will actually prove not to be a way forward, while only 30% would stay as a permanent part of the product. That's what the statistics are saying, but it's very individual based on the type of the business and the company. So let me turn to our panelists with our very first question, which is kind of a warm-up. What is the one thing that makes you excited about being a part of PLG in your company? And I see that you have the mic, so you can start right from there.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking about like PLG. It has certain levels, right? So one of the things about PLG is that you have the outside motion. So you care about the lead gen and how people are converting to their first new subscription, and that was the part that I wasn't really I wasn't really part of at any point. So we had our marketing team that was working on that, and growth hacker that was actually optimizing the sign up process, etc. When it became interesting for me is when I got that subscription, right? Then it's my goal to retain that subscription and expand that subscription over time. And that's what I really liked, because we had a lot of customers. We had like thousands of customers, and in those thousands, you first need to find segments, and certain segments you nurture, certain segments are just throwaway ones, right? So this investigative work, this investigation that we were continuously doing and optimizing for certain segments, and just throwing away some other ones, and feeding the feedback loop back to the marketing. Hey, you want to attract those customers, and those customers from Brazil don't even send them to the sign up process. That's what's PLG motion for me. That's what the PLG motion was in SmartLook, and that's what I enjoyed, this investigative work and trying to figure out what works and what is the path forward.
So to paint the picture, what is interesting about PLG for me, let's talk about what PLG is, how we got here. So how was software sold 40 years ago? 40 years ago. Well, it wasn't. 40 years ago, all the revenue in computer was in the hardware. These were companies like Atari, right? Then there's this revolutionary company that started selling licenses for disk operating system, DOS. Afterwards, they introduced Windows, and Microsoft is kind of a big deal, right? That was like 30-ish years ago. Cool. Then internet became a thing, but at this very point, software was sold in boxes. You would buy Microsoft Word, you would get a box, and that box would stay with you with a license that you could use forever. And someone was like, well, but like if I'm supposed to upgrade that software, who pays me for those updates? So people introduced a new business model, software as a service. If you heard of companies like Salesforce or Basecamp, these came with a radical idea. What happens when the way you buy software is not that you mail a check to someone or do a wire transfer, but you enter a credit card online? Software as a service was born 15-ish years ago. And so what is PLG? PLG is, well, once you can enter a credit card into a software, what if you didn't have to talk to any person to get started? What if the product guided you yourself from the introductory landing page when it explains what the product does and why you need it, all the way to you enter a credit card in a self-serve motion without talking to anyone, just using the resources right there, and we upsell you from there. One thing you might ask is what comes next. The most recent fashion is product-led sales, when the product sort of connects you with the sales team for very large deals, say for deals of 100K a year and larger. And so what makes me excited about product-led growth? Me as an engineer, if I want to get revenue, I don't need to talk to people. I just make the software great, and then I get a Stripe notification that someone paid. Like, do you know any other better way of getting revenue than not talking to people? Me as an engineer, this is the best way.
For me, as an engineer, I would say that the most exciting part of the growth is that the creativity. So you can imagine that in the product teams, you're using your left hemisphere of the brain. So you're basically systematic, you're analytical, right? And in growth, there is actually space for you to come up with your own ideas and hypotheses. And so for me, when I actually have some hypothesis, I just build it, I test it, and I see the real impact on the users and the real metrics. This is really exciting thing for me to work as an engineer. And about the PLG, the way how I see the PLG is about making the most out of the product. So you can imagine that you can always tweak your feature, you can always grow your customer base, grow the metrics. So in PLG, the product is the main driver, which drives the adoption, which drives the growth. And I would even say that if you really nail the PLG in a company, it means that basically the advertising or the selling is super easy for you. You don't have to invest that much resources into it, because the people that are working in sales or marketing, they will really be super excited about you as a APD organization, because you are making their lives much easier.
Cool. We have a few questions here, so let's look at them. What is the difference in between growth hacking and growth engineering? I think that those are the same. Do you have other opinion on it? Basically, like yeah, those are the same. Just one is a little bit fancier. If you want to be a hacker. Well, another one is, what is the difference between growth and traditional GTM teams, like marketing, sales, and success? Because I guess Ondra said that you started looking more into marketing, or that was you. So, oh, you want to answer? So, yeah, go for it.
Uh, Maybe I just want to mention about that. I believe that growth is actually cross-functional discipline. So it's not just about that you work with other product engineers in your company, but you also work with marketing people, sales people, and support people. So, for example, if you're working on the website, you're actually working with the marketing and trying to kind of like uh, build some experiments, A/B testing, so it converts the users, right? So with support, for example, what is really exciting to do is that you can bring the support people early in discovery, and because they know the pain points of some, let's say, part of your applications. They know, for example, the invitation flow doesn't work, and then actually have a lot of ideas how you should be onboarding people. So for me, this is like a really cross-functional discipline as a growth.
Maybe if I may ask you to continue with like what happens if these departments will get disconnected, like if they're not collaborating, like sales, marketing, and product-led growth.
So to quote Alex Schultz, who's the growth person at Facebook, he's the guy who came up with the idea of 7 friends within 10 days. You need 7 friends within 10 days to stick at Facebook, right? Alex Schultz at Facebook said that if you're a small company, if you're a startup, you should not have a dedicated growth team. To quote him, I'm not swearing, this is a direct quote. He's like, everyone in the company should be in the fucking growth team. He said it on Stanford. It's fine to say it here. And so what happens? I agree with Alex. Essentially, mainly in early stage engineering startups, everyone should care about growth. Paul Graham wrote this essay: startups are defined by growth. Are you even a startup if you're not growing? And what happens if you disconnect these companies? Well, you don't grow. Essentially, people start blaming each other. Engineers are like, "Hey, but product design is wrong." The product is like, "Hey, but designer didn't put it into Figma design." And that's not what you want. What you want is to provide a wonderful experience to end customers. So everyone needs to be in one room, ideally, and work alongside each other.
Thank you. We have another interesting. Oh, I've just archived. Yeah, another interesting question we have here is like, do you think subscription-based pricing will sustain in products? Aren't users going to be tired of everything as a service and stop paying? This is a very interesting question. I would say it has something to do with oral transition into subscription-based model. It's great for companies because it's predictable ARR, in opposed to paying for the box license, and then users might use it for a while and not pay again. But yeah, I would be wondering what others think about it. So, Ondra, if you can take it.
So my take on that is that it will stay for sure. Although there will be a change. The biggest or one of the big problems for all the software companies currently is the amount of subscriptions they have, right? So you are buying SaaS for A/B testing, for product analytics, for APM, for whatever. You end up with like 20 or 30 subscriptions, and you are paying thousands or tens of thousands of dollars per month. What's going to happen in the future is that consolidation will take place, and that's what Cisco is doing, right? What they are trying to do is they are trying to offer you a set of services under a single subscription, and there are other companies that are starting to build that, um, which is opportunity for startups, right, to get acquired because they are probably the missing piece to some of those larger ones. So yeah, back to the original question. Yes, it's going to stay, but the subscriptions will be consolidated into a single or just a couple of them.
I myself ended up having like 5 different streaming services. Then I said no because I didn't need all of them. Also, the content is quite duplicate as well. So, in product board, we ended up having 3 different whiteboarding tools like Miro, FigJam, and I don't know what else, but everything is like hundreds or thousands or maybe tens of thousands of dollars, and it's a duplicate thing. So I completely get the point where you're coming from. You're right. Do you want to comment on it?
Want to comment on everything. So Parker Conrad, the founder of Rippling, has this concept of compound startup, where he explains that companies will be building adjacent products together exactly to bundle the services that make sense to use together, and upsell them and then sell them some in one go instead of 3 different products. But there's one important thing that needs to be said. These products are priced on the value they create, not on the cost they cost to operate, right? So I don't think this is going anywhere. When you sell a product board to a business that increases revenue by 100%, the moment product board costs less than the 100%, it's still worth for the company to keep paying, right? So it's a wonderful business model that lets companies to innovate. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Thank you. Let's get back to our questions we have here on deck, and we will come back to other questions later because they're quite related to what we have here as well. So maybe I would jump to another question, which is, what is the best advice you would give to a person interested in becoming possibly a growth engineer? Or what is the let's say personality traits you need to have as a growth engineer? You have any advice? Alex, maybe if you can comment.
Yeah, so my advice would be that try to be super geeky or nerdy about your product. So if you have like really strong product thinking and product mind, this is super helpful for you. And what really helps is that if you can spot easily some inefficiencies in the product. So if you can find the weak spots or you can come up with some ideas that you can actually improve it, that's a really good foundation for growth engineer. In terms of hard skills, I would say try to be productive in your stack. So you need to be familiar, you need to be efficient with the stack, and you need to also be data driven. So the ability to work with data, analyze data, kind of interpret what data is saying to you. This is one of the key for growth engineer.
I have maybe another very similar question to it is, how do you recognize or maybe recognize you're not a good fit for it? So the question would be like, is growth for everybody?
Now, if you prefer to work with algorithms on a really hard technical problems that are isolated, then no. If your favorite word is neural net, then don't do growth.
Yeah, like I think the single big most important trait for this type of person is that that person needs to be curious. So the curiosity is something that is then driving the change, right? That person needs to be curious about what's working, what's not working, and that's is the main job of the person to try to figure out and then suggest improvements. Curiosity for me. If you're not curious, just enjoy working on stuff somehow, then it's not for you.
Yeah, I can imagine that for some of the engineers, like basically writing code that will die soon or might die soon might be a challenge. So Was it actually for you anytime in your career a challenge that you needed to write a lot of code that was deleted later on?
No, that's definitely part of it. It's not about the lines of code I write, it's about what people do with the code. But to get to the previous question, if you are a good engineer, you want to get to growth, um, be interested in marketing. Stop being an engineer. You already are a wonderful engineer. Just learn about marketing because you can already do magic. Software engineering is the closest thing to magic there is. And so if you are a marketer, look at it from the other point of view. Things like scraping data, that is impossible for a marketer. You can do it in like 5 lines of Python code, right? Automating things, automating your Google ads, automating your CPCs on Google ads, that is impossible for a marketer. It is trivial for an engineer. So if you're an engineer, you actually have it easy. Just learn marketing. And then the second thing I would recommend to people, copy. What is the quote? Good artists copy, great artists steal. Just look at other competitors in other segments, ask how they grow, and implement those things in your segments. To speak concretely, for instance, you're interested in search engine optimization. There are tools like Ahrefs that analyze other websites in depth. And for instance, I'll tell you a secret, Glassdoor.com, the job review site, grows only by SEO. So you come home, what you can do, you open up Ahrefs.com, you enter Glassdoor.com, and you copy paste every single thing they do to grow into your business. And you can get pretty far with this alone.
Yeah, maybe it's a stupid question, but would you say that marketing is actually a bigger part of job, like the more important one, or it's still like more about the engineering craft?
Could you repeat that? If marketing is part of the job?
Like if the job of the PLG engineer is more about the marketing part than about the coding, like where is the core of the job?
I wouldn't say so. I would look. I have no new insights. I would just quote Alex Schultz. And Alex Schultz, if you guys are interested, Alex Schultz growth from Y Combinator, how to start a startup from Stanford lectures online. He starts his growth lecture talking about the retention curve. As in, it doesn't matter how you get your customers in. How long does an average product board user stay? Um, and and if you think about this growth is holistic. For instance, from the point of view of a growth engineer, one customer leaving and one customer coming in is the same thing as nobody going anywhere, not getting any new customer. You get the same revenue at the end of the day. So frankly, good growth engineers care about how customers use their products they work on as engineers. They just care, and they use their skills to improve the user experience to get people further along in the funnel of the product.
I just want to quickly follow up on Yura's mention about the copying. I think this is great inspiration, but I would not focus on just copying blindly the other experiments or other the use cases that work in other companies, because there were a lot of examples that one company, or there's like growth.design, which is my favorite resource. You can find a lot of like use cases or growth hacks, what other companies are actually built, right? And in product board we were having growth evenings, we were actually going through these use cases and we are trying to get some inspiration and think about if this is something that could fit in product board or not. And most of them might not work in product board, so this is all about the specifics about your company. So but you can definitely get some inspiration from those growth hacks that you can find on the internet.
We have actually started to answering two questions simultaneously from the audience. So one I'd like to continue with is like which you partially touched. What is the best resource to learn about PLG as an engineer? So that's one. And second is if engineers do come up with the experiments and ideas, like what to validate, or those are coming from marketing slash product. So if you want to comment on one of these, Alexei, before we will pass the mic.
Yeah, I would just mention that I don't have any specific resource. Maybe the way how I learn is that I'm a self-learner, so I was a lot kind of like reading on the internet, and there's a lot of stuff that you can learn, right? But the practice is what makes actually things that makes more sense. And There's one actually resource I would definitely recommend. It's Reforge. There is a course for the growth, and it's kind of pricey, but there are some resources on the online that you can find. And I would say this is the one of the best resource that you can understand how the PLG actually is all about.
Yeah, and do you also suggest the experiments at product board, like what should be validated as a hypothesis, or does it come from marketing/product?
So it's actually the both, because if you're not kind of collecting the feedback or sorry, the ideas from the engineers, you are missing out. So the best thing that you can do is actually, as a product manager, you are coming and you talk to engineers, and you have, for example, in our team we had a experiment evaluation or hypothesis workshop where we are actually trying to come up with ideas and hypotheses, how can we actually quickly validate uh, the new thing that we can build, basically.
Okay, you're right.
I'll just quickly comment on the resources. The number one thing I would recommend is called indiehackers.com. Those are interviews and a podcast with software builders. So people like you starting new companies, and the interviewer asked the magical question: how did you get your first 100 customers? So just read those interviews. Number two would be Lenny's newsletter. That's best newsletter about product management, specifically interviews with the head of growth at Figma, with the head of growth at with Elena Verna, who helped companies like Miro to grow. And a shameless plug, the third one would be my blog. So it's my first name.blog, blog.
Yeah, totally agree with Lenny's newsletter as well as his Twitter. And generally, Twitter is perfect resource for these kind of things. So if you start following just a couple of people, then content will just show up for you over time, and it's great resource to learn about trends and new stuff.
And the second one was like, do you also personally identify some of the experiments at your company, or who is doing it at Cisco?
If I do what?
If you are designing some of the experiments yourself as an engineer, or that's part of job of product and sales and marketing.
Right. In SmartLook, yeah, I was doing that. In Cisco, it's a little bit too early for that. The pace is not that fast there.
Maybe I would stick a little bit with the topic how these experiments are actually identified. So there are probably like various of different techniques how to identify like a hypothesis that is worth validating, or spiking in production and seeing the results. So can you talk a little bit about your general approach in your company, how you design these experiments and how you basically built a backlog of ideas for PLG?
So I work very closely with BI. So we try to gather all the information. I have BI team ready, setting up dashboards, or setting dashboards in a way that I can play with them, right? And I do these like deep dive sessions in which I'm sitting. We are using Holistics, which is like poor man's Tableau or whatever. And I'm just trying to find a segment that is weird or good in a way that makes money or loses money. I'm trying to figure out what to change. So these deep dive sessions, they really work for us. So it always starts with data. So data driven was mentioned in SmartLook. It was very data driven. Then that's the information on the aggregate level, right? So when I see a weird behavior, I for example go to SmartLook and I watch those people, like what's up with those sessions, what they are doing, are there some obvious problems, and we dig deeper. So it's not like I'm coming with the hypothesis, right? I'm more like exploring the data sets that are available to me, and I like my data sets to be available easily. And as I go, I think about things and I note them down, and then I make a short list, and then we do some changes and we iterate on that over a couple of weeks. That's how we were working.
uh, you're B2C currently, or what's the B2C company like? Do you have or B2B?
No, we are pure B2B.
Pure B2B. Do we have any B2C here? Probably not. We're all B2B, right? So maybe I will formulate the question in a different way. Like when you're B2C, you have quite a big sample of data. Like you have higher traffic and then many different customers using your product. Like is it actually hard for you to gather enough data to decide whether the experiment was a success or not? And how far in the future you might expect the results to come actually usually for your experiments?
So we don't actually like had time to do experiments. We were just doing changes, and if there was a problem, we just did the revert sometimes. But it wasn't like we were running like two experiments at the same time or stuff like that. Like there was no time for that. So if we were to roll out, for example, a pricing change, we roll out the pricing change, and then it was about the BI, about the availability of data that we were observing how it's working, whether there's a big problem, whether we need to do some change immediately, whether we need to roll back. But for me, it was not an experiment, it was normal development because I didn't have time for experiments.
Right. Do you have similar experience?
Yes. So all companies in particular can't measure things. There's this quote that the moment a company starts A/B testing things, they start to decay because they lose any opinions. Obviously, this is a little extreme, but I think it's very true to early stage startups. For instance, one of the coolest, I don't want to talk about BetterStack. Obviously, BetterStack is very cool. Let's talk about different cool company, Linear. Many of you guys think of Linear highly. If you read the interview with the founder at Lenny's newsletter, he says, I'm the only person who has sort of a vision for the product, and like we implement what I think is the right opinion for it. We don't do any sort of quantitative neither experiments nor product management, right? There are different approaches to it. If you are small and you run tests, your tests are going to be statistically insignificant. You won't get statistical significance out of it. You'll get results. You can be happy about those numbers. Those numbers won't tell you anything. So the beauty of it is that not you don't need to measure everything all the time. I'll give you an example. BetterStack offers status pages. If you go to status.time.com, the Time magazine, you are going to see a page that shows you the state of their services. Are their servers up or down? We run the status page. You can find a similar status page on thousands of other domains. And the status page in the very bottom says powered by BetterStack. And here's the kicker. That is a do follow link, meaning it's a content for those of you who understand SEO. It's been not posted on LinkedIn. This is top secret, high live stream. So it's a do follow link that is rendered from our servers, but it has the domain authority of your domain. So if say harvard.edu sets up a status page, that is a domain with very high domain authority that I'm getting a backlink from. And what happens when we launch a new product? We launch a new product line, have a new URL. We just simply redirect some of those URLs to this new product that just explodes in Google. Why? Because it's getting all these links from Harvard EDU for some reason, right? This is a extremely efficient growth hack. You don't need to measure it. You could measure it. It doesn't really make sense to measure it. It's sort of obvious that it works, right? And I think you can get very, 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 very far along without measuring things, just doing the right things for your users and things that make sense. When you leverage your engineering super skills for to execute on marketing ideas.
Just maybe add one thing about you mentioned that you don't have to measure it in the early startup. What I think might be also useful for you in early startup is actually to have a full story, so the recording. So basically, this is something that you can actually observe the user how they interact with your app, and there's a lot of valuable insights. For example, you are thinking about how they should be interacting with your app, but the reality is completely different, and sometimes it can be like really really terrible to painful to watch it. So definitely, if you can afford the measure in the quantitative side of things in the beginning, then full story can be your friend here. Story.
Uh, we can talk a bit about we have started about what is needed and what is not in early stage startups when they're experimenting with PLG. So there is a question regarding what are the biggest do's and don'ts in PLG. So do you have any other recommendation, such as metrics are probably not the most important thing when you're starting with PLG?
Don't do it half-ass. Either do it or don't. Essentially, I don't think there is something like a existing company, existing product line that typically grows through sales. And then an executive comes in and they're like, well, in the next quarter, we are doing product-led growth. I don't think that ever works, right? So David Sachs from the PayPal Mafia wrote this amazing piece on how to build a massive software company, either bottoms up or top down. The new sexy name for bottoms up or self-serve motion is product-led growth. It's still the same thing. So what I would tell you is only introduce sales. If your monthly subscription is less than $1,000 per month, do your best not to have a person talking to a customer, because if you have a person talking to a customer, they will persuade the customer to subscribe and pay money. But guess what? Maybe without the salesperson, they would not subscribe, and it doesn't. You can try for the very first customer, but the unit economics doesn't scale, right? So don't do it half-ass. If you're going to doing product-led growth, doing from day one for a product, stick to it, and just create a great self-serve software.
Maybe that's a nice question that comes to my mind regarding this, what you just said. Like in some of the companies, especially when you start targeting like enterprise organizations, they're not used to land the new product in this way. They're always used to run a demo and POC and everything like that. Do you have any recommendation if you want to scale into this segment?
Yes. Watch the interview with the head of growth from Figma at Lenny's newsletter, and watch Elena Verna's interview at Lenny's newsletter. You're 100% right, but there are companies that work differently. For instance, Zoom, right? Zoom famously sold to big corporations by just calling the CIO and telling them, hey, did you know you have 20 different teams of free people here, there, and over there that pay for separate Zoom license? Do you want to pay for one license with audit logs, with two-factor authentication, better security, and better reporting for cheaper price? Like, what CIO would not take the deal, right? So this is sort of bottom-up penetration at a enterprise company. Figma did something similar. They, for instance, internally tracked how people shared their links. So design something in Figma, share it with a colleague using a link. Somewhere in Figma, there is a graph of how Figma is spreading through our corporation, right? So I think you can really play with it.
That's basically some kind of a land and expand motion where you try to focus like individual contributors that are growing the seed within the company, and when the adoption becomes like exceeds some critical mass, it's actually more important for the company to buy the product as whole. Yeah, that's smart. In some of the companies, this is easier to do. In some of them, it's harder, especially if the primary buyer is CIO or some C-level. So probably not suitable for all the companies, but definitely for some, this is a super cool thing to do. You have the mic, so let's continue with one of other questions I have here, like top voted. How do you facilitate cross-functional growth meetings at BetterStack? What is the secret sauce? I don't know if some insider is asking, or but maybe.
Neither do I, so I'll make it short. There is a secret sauce. We don't have engineering teams, for instance, right now. We don't share financial metrics, so it's a little awkward. But trust me, the company is doing very well, right? We have one engineering team. Everyone's in one team. They're not in one room, but they're in one team. Meaning, don't create artificial silos in between people, and work with senior people. It's extremely important. People who can manage their own work, come up with their own ideas, who can take an idea, specifically engineers, from an idea all the way to shipped product. If you do this, you're in good hands. People will come with the right ideas, they will implement the right ideas, and you just need to, frankly, not stand in their way, and then they'll do the right thing if they care.
I would just maybe ask Ondra another question we have here. Like, what's the reason why like traditional product teams cannot achieve the same results? Why do we need PLG in the company? What makes it different?
I believe it's maybe their lack of focus sometimes because they are overwhelmed with customer feedback coming from sales department or talking to customers. So this is like growth team is a team with different set of goals that has the ability to focus on things differently. So I think it's just their agenda is different, right? So PMs are busy with other things quite often. In our case, that was quite often the case. So it's sometimes it's good to have a person who's told, "Hey, try to figure things out somehow."
Is the split so clear for you, or is there some overlap in between product team's agenda and then like PLG team's agenda? In the other words, like can product team do like part of PLG as well?
Yeah. So for example, SmartLook wasn't a large company, right? So we didn't have like a growth team, or we had 2, 3 PMs, and we had one single person who was growth PM and me, and then the BI team. So it was actually a PM. So that person was just focused on growth. So goal of that person was not to develop a new feature, but was to, for example, to try to figure out, hey, if we land a customer through, and that customer is just a single product manager from a large company, how do we spread the product to the other PMs, to the engineering, to the marketing potentially? So that's what that person, apart from other things, was thinking about, right? His goal was to, for example, come up with a feature or some improvement that makes it easier to invite people, that makes it easier to share a recording, that enables the Jira ticket creation from directly from the recording, which then grew the availability of SmartLook Link across their systems, and it helped us to retain better or even to upsell more. Um, traditional PM is more focused on, hey, what do I add to the product, or how do I improve it, and what's gonna be in the next release. So it's the agenda is different in those teams.
Yeah. We have here another question, Alexei. You were here with product board when we started thinking about PLG. Like, what's the biggest challenge? Like, we heard from you, right, that you either need to do it or not. There is no middle ground. Can you recall any challenges we had when we were starting with PLG?
So the challenge was to actually we didn't have any knowledge. So our challenge for the team was that actually to learn about the PLG. What is this all about? That's one thing. Another thing I would say that the one of the challenge for us was actually to we built many experiments in the code base, and one of the experiments we just left it in the code base. We didn't follow up on that. So the challenge was for us to, for example, to communicate and push kind of like the execs or the business people to actually, hey, we need to do a follow up on that. We can't keep the experiment in the state that it is there because it adds some maintainability aspect, more efforts for the engineering. So sometimes you just when you actually finish the experiment, you need to do a follow up, and you have three ways how to do that. One of is that it doesn't basically move any numbers, so you need to kill it. If your numbers are flat and you're thinking about if you need to generate basically new ideas, or you need to kind of try out like maybe this is a good direction, but you kind of want to still stay on the same path. And the third part is actually that you build it, you see the positive trend, and you need to make sure that it's actually G8. So the challenge for us was actually that we built multiple experiments, but we didn't follow up on some of them.
And maybe related to it is like you said that we didn't know how to do it properly at the beginning because we were just learning on the fly, learning by doing, which is usually pretty common in startups. But like still, like, was there any let's say companies you personally think that are doing PLG really well that people can take inspiration from?
So for me, my favorite products, what I see or get inspired is the Notion. I like how they solve the invitations flow. I like how they solve the collaboration part and in the application or the notifications. Another thing I would say Figma. Figma is really doing great in PLG. I really like their product.
I saw the other question: what company should I join to learn about PLG? Yes, you should join BetterStack. I had to plug that in, but to give you an objective answer to that question, find out how much revenue a company is generating, and find out how many engineers they have and how many salespeople they have. I love salespeople. Salespeople, you need salespeople to build a critical business, but early on, PLG companies have a few salespeople. BetterStack has freshly two salespeople. For the longest time, we had one. Um, and then essentially join a company that has, say, revenue per engineer north of $500,000. Revenue is the ultimate validator that what they do makes sense, right? If you join a company that has revenue, has engineers, doesn't have many salespeople, well, it can't grow through sales. The only option how they can grow is through the product itself.
So the absence of salespeople in quite successful companies is a good indicator of like existing PLG, basically.
At the point in time, yes. Eventually, even Figma hired salespeople, but for a good part early on, they didn't have salespeople.
I just want to get back to the question about like which company implemented product-led growth well. And what comes to my mind is Miro. I was shocked when I saw how quickly Miro spread through SmartLook initially. And it's the invitation system they did is just insane. It was like after a week, I had like 50 people that I was paying for. And initially we had like 3. Check Miro out in terms of like how they bill and how they do invitations. That's PLG at its finest.
Uh, that's maybe a question from myself, like what we see, especially when we're looking for a new talent, like PLG in Europe is not that common. In the US, it's pretty common, and everybody is trying to do that. Do you see any reason for that?
I disagree with that.
Uh,
I think it's very common in Europe as well. Actually, to the contrary, I think Eastern Europeans specifically are pretty good at growth hacking. Um, I can't spoil. I don't want to spoil people's businesses, but there are 2 or 3 search engine optimization based businesses in Czech Republic and Slovakia that make millions and some of them even tens of millions of dollars per year that you never heard of. And so, does it count as PLG? Well, I mean, I think it counts as growth hacking. So yes, depending on what kind of label you're going to put in it. And here's the thing: here's why Eastern Europeans are specifically good at product-led growth. Well, because we suck at sales. So if you have a successful business and you don't have sales, yet again, the product had to sell itself, right?
But that's interesting because maybe these people are not just labeling it as a PLG; they are doing that like as a natural thing. But if you look into statistics, like we don't have that many engineers that are focusing on PLG in Europe, and yeah.
And yeah, I totally agree. I think the lack of capital in Europe, in terms of like VC capital, uh, it's isn't or not the lack of it, but there's more money in the US. There are bigger rounds in the US, and those people can hire sales faster, etc., etc. That on our side and in SmartLook as well required us to do a lot of growth for very little amount of money initially. So I believe like this region of world is actually being forced to do growth because there's just not that much money as there is in United States.
I don't think it's about money at all. I agree with you. I don't think it's the money. I think it's the people. So for instance, when it comes to security experts, turns out Czech Republic and Slovakia is this freaking kingdom of security experts because you have formerly free security companies on one highway. And by the way, there aren't that many highways over here, mainly in Slovakia. So you have ESET in Bratislava, AVG in Brno, you have Avast in Prague. This used to be a country of 50 million people. Like antivirus companies per capita, Jesus Christ, there's some engineering talent right here. Now, how many companies from, say, Czech Republic and Slovakia specifically, that grow via having a wonderful sales force, salespeople in B2B do you know? Well, I don't know any. Yet, when it comes to the US, when we started interviewing the first few salespeople in the US, um, it was Americans are just good at selling. Like they just are. I think it's this cultural thing when they automatically look at the glass as half full. And so what we do is that we do business mostly in the U.S. We hire engineering people over here, and I think that plays to strengths to both cultures. So I don't think it's the money. I think you can get the money anywhere, but it's just like, for instance, if you are hiring in Prague, like, you can hire one great salesperson. Maybe you can hire 10. But what about the 12th salesperson?
Yeah, I agree. Like it's not only money; it's also money. But if you have the availability of capital, then you are kind of even pushed by investors sometimes. Hey, you need to find a way to grow, right? So you need to increase your marketing spend. You need to hire your sales team, and you just do that faster in the United States. You do it even like pre-Series A, not here.
Or you just tell the investor, like, hey, no, like, this is my business. This is how we're running it. There are multiple options. But there's a lot of money in Europe these days.
Yeah. We have maybe let's shift a little bit from this topic to another one. What is the most successful growth hack you have ever done or worked on? Maybe Alex, if you can answer this one.
Uh, I would say in product board, what really worked for us in PLG was that previously we had a billing per user. So we were basically, if you have 10 users, you're paying for 10 users, right? But what we introduced is that we introduced the billing per seat. And that was kind of like had an impact on our revenue because suddenly if a company buys let's say 20 seats and they're using just only 15, then there's still some revenue that you are getting basically for that. So that's one of the things that really help us. Another example, I would say that we had old sign up and it wasn't quite efficient. So what helped us is actually to reduce the number of steps in the sign up. So the experience was much more smooth and more efficient. And again, that really helped us to bring more trial users, which means that more paid users as well, if you have the same conversion rates.
This is probably a good question for everybody. So please answer shortly.
I can even give you a good answer or answer shortly. I can do both. So I don't want to spoil growth hacks we do at BetterStack because our competition is listening. So I'll tell you a different one that I've done for a hobby project of mine. The hobby project was back in the day, years ago, called Customer Guru. It was a survey tool for eShops. So you would order something from eShop. We would send you a Net Promoter Score based survey. How much did you like it? So how do you grow a survey based software? Turns out most of these businesses don't stand on one growth hack. I think typically they do stand on about three. So I'll tell you three growth hacks how to build a survey business. First one was long tail computer generating landing pages with SEO. Companies like to search for benchmarks. today, the metric that you are tracking using this tool was called Net Promoter Score. People would search for other companies and the word Net Promoter Score. Even today, if you try it on your phone and search for Disney Net Promoter Score, you're going to find a landing page from customer.guru, which automatically generated SEO, long tail automatically generated SEO landing pages. Number two, we had the tight integration with Shopify. When there's an integration, there's an app store. When there's app store, you can get to the top of the app store. Just figure it out. In our case, years ago, we figured out the more positive ratings you get, the better. Turns out when you reply to every single customer ticket, hey, please rate us on this app store, the customers sort of think like they're rating the interaction of the product, so they do. They write a positive review. Turns out we were number one in the category. And number three is virality. Every single email survey that you send has a powered by, I love the powered by logos, in this case, powered by customer guru. The more surveys you send, the likely that a potential customer is going to see you. So this survey was sending millions and millions of customers. So obviously some potential customers already saw that. So in the case of this side project, a survey tool, it was a combination of three things: SEO, virality, and marketplace hacking.
Yeah.
Not illegally, not hacking. I mean, just figuring out how it works, getting positive reviews is legal.
Yeah, the question is most successful growth hack, and I almost can't think of any since like not there was never that major of an impact to coming from a single one. Although the one I remember was that once we raised prices quite significantly, not doubled, but we raised prices quite significantly, and there was no price elasticity, right? People kept buying, they didn't churn. Is it a growth hack? I don't know. Raise your prices sometimes.
Yeah, I also heard a story about one company selling their physical product that was revolutionary, and it was very cheap to build. It only costed like 10 euros or something like that. So they hired an advisor because they had quite low sales, and they basically said it's revolutionary, so it needs to be expensive. So they basically multiplied the price 10 times. It was not for 10 euros anymore; it was for 100, and their sales skyrocketed because people felt like it's premium. They need to pay for a special product. So this is interesting. Increasing prices might not be always bad for in terms of attrition and bringing new customers in. Maybe we have time because we are getting over an hour mark for two questions here from Slido, and then we will start throwing the box for another, let's say, 5 or so questions if there are any here on site. If you had like thousands of new users registering every month for the product, which is for free, to support growth, when would you start monetization? So it's basically if you run some kind of freemium or free product. So
yeah, that was exactly the cases for SmartLook. So SmartLook started in March 2016. It was running for free for 9 months. It was quite popular because it was a free session replay tool, limited but free. So after about 10 months, we decided that we need to come up with pricing because the costs were not sustainable anymore. That was our reasoning behind it. But we stayed freemium for up until today, actually. And we are receiving like 5,000 signups every month. Although I believe with the upmarket motion that we went for, going from $20 a month to like 200 or 400 or 600 a month, it became less and less important. So it was working initially for the small prices. There was a word of mouth. Some people were excited. They were talking about the product. They were tweeting about it. The more expensive we got, it became more important to be visible elsewhere, to do like Quora ads, to be present on G2 Crowd, rank well because people are the relevant people for us are there. So the audience changed throughout the years. For if it's a PM talking to a PM, or hobby web blogger using session replay talking to other, it works, for $20, $30. But I felt like it stopped working at some point, and we needed to venture into other ways how to attract people.
Short answer, charge from day one, not because of the $17 you're going to earn first week, but because that revenue is the ultimate validation that you're building the right product.
Yeah, we have experimented with some freemium as well, like side by side with the paid product. So maybe if Alex, can you talk about like a freemium and what was the motivation?
Yeah, I would
for that?
say in general, what I've seen other companies are doing, they're trying to, in with the freemium, they're trying to get a lot of users, and they're trying to get a lot of traction here, right? So, and I think the moment when you need to start monetizing is that when they have a lot of data in the product, and it's really hard for them to leave. So if you can kind of predict this moment and in the right time just start monetizing, that is great, because you will be getting the money from it.
Yeah, so basically, it's limited experience of your existing paid product, and but it's so limited that people might hit some limit of usage, and they would be incentivized to buy the full product. But still, it would be good enough to bring attention and basically bring leads to the product because it's free. Um, do you guys have any experience with building like a freemium or free product as a complement side by side with your main product?
Yeah, so BetterStack is freemium. One thing I would tell you is never do trials. Don't do trials. People typically do like 3-week trials for their products. That's stupid. Don't do it, because the customer is going to pay you on week 3 even when they're happy with your product. Instead of 3 weeks trial, do 2-month money back guarantee, 60 days money back guarantee. You get paid on day one. The worst case scenario, you just refund some customers, but you get paid on day one. You do get paid for even the first 3 weeks. And from the point of view of a customer, they're looking at it, they're like, I get 60 days to choose if I like it or not instead of 3 weeks. So it's a win for me as well. So that is, do this every single time. Free trials are stupid. Don't do them. As for freemiums, one concept we need to talk about is called the aha moment, which is when, to make a long story short, because I want to pass the mic to Andre, that's when the product clicks, when it makes sense for the user. And the tricky part with freemium is how do you surface the aha moment to the free customer so that they can get the product, but in order to unlock the most value, they do need to pay at some point. And this is mainly early enough when you don't have data, oftentimes more art than science.
Maybe so. Sorry, before we will jump in, no, I have one question for you because what you said is interesting in terms of trial and maybe not doing trial at all. How do you deal with basically customers hesitating to pay it in advance, because that's basically another obstacle in place. Like if we look at the funnel and how product-led growth is trying to minimize the like how hard it is to subscribe and how hard it is to get into the product, isn't it going the opposite direction if you force them to pay it on day one?
So first, in the case of BetterStack, we don't force you, but we show you the credit card if you want to get advanced features in the onboarding flow, but we don't force you to fill it out. So I would nudge people to pay from day one, but I would have what we have is a sort of time unlimited freemium model, but it's feature limited, right? And so this is how we get to, you asked about B2B, B2C before. We have close to 200,000 engineers using BetterStack today. Is that B2C or B2B? Well, it is the business model of B2B with the advantage of B2C, right? But you treat the user base data-wise as a B2C. So freemium with this money back guarantee for advanced features can be very, very powerful.
I see. So the freemium serves as a very limited trial, basically, and if you want to see the full potential, you need to provide your credit card to unlock the 2 months back guarantee.
I'll give you an example. So what we do, we notify you as an engineer when the website goes down. So if you don't pay, we send you an email. If you are asleep at 3 a.m. in the morning, email is not going to wake you up. If you want to get a phone call at 3 a.m. in the morning that wakes you up so that you can actually fix your servers, well, then you need to pay, right? So it's the same service, but like this little details really matters.
I just wanted to comment on don't do trials. SmartLook is and was doing trials throughout its history. And actually, just last year, we extended the trial from 10 days to 30 days. So it's a bit of a harsh statement. You can do trials. So what we do is we do trial first. So everyone who signs up goes to trial. They get the full feature set that's limited in terms of how much data we can consume for you. And we do that so people have time to understand the product. And so I would say it's product based sometimes. Sometimes people don't know what to expect, or they expect one thing. In our case, they initially mostly expect session replay, but we want them to have time to explore other things that we know drive the retention. um, so we do that through a free trial. We give them unlimited product in terms of feature set. We even encourage them to invite colleagues, and then we cut them off. We give them the option, right? You can go to a free account, which is like super limited, or you can buy. And we do it after 30 days, and it works. And it was working even after 10 days. We extended that so they have time to invite more people to try more of those advanced features. So this may be relevant to SmartLook as a product, it may not be relevant to BetterStack, but I would say it's product dependent. So I would like to soften that statement.
So it's basically like a usage limited freemium at first, and you can use it for free.
It's one of the ways how to do that, right? And there's nothing bad about it. It may work for you. If we are talking about experiments, you may want to experiment with both.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I wanted to say that maybe there is no silver bullet for everybody. Like we do use trials as well, like at product board, and you can also switch in between different plans to basically see the features.
If I was a VC and this was a board meeting, I would tell you, well, that's great that it worked, but maybe if you were doing money back guarantee instead of a trial, maybe you would have grown faster, right? And it's very hard to argue with the statement, right? But I agree that every product is different, and I don't want to turn this into a rap battle. Um, the point with the money back guarantee was that the customer looks at 60 days versus 30 days. It then don't care that much if it's a trial or money back guarantee versus you as a business, you get your cash 3 weeks ahead, right? That can be important for your cash flow.
I mean, I get it. Although, again, in terms of SmartLook, historically, we had, for example, technical problems. And you never anticipate those technical problems because that website that you are going to be integrated with, or that mobile application that you're going to be integrated with, may not interact well with the SDK. So this would actually create a lot of work in terms of those refunds. So for us, this was actually, it may be a viable option now. It definitely was not a viable option like 3 years ago. So this is definitely a product dependent thing. And you need to evaluate within the context of your product always. And I love money up front as much as you do.
Was this the last one?
Did I love money up front as much as you do?
I mean, I was just going to say we can still be friends, but
Okay, guys, this is probably good closing question for Slido here. We still have many questions here, so if you feel like it wasn't answered during the chat here, please feel free to reach out. There will be some networking session afterwards. But in any case, is there any question here on site? We might have time for a few questions here. I'll just throw the mic, like try to catch. Nice. I always wanted to try this.
Is this the mic?
Yeah, just speak into it.
Cool. Okay, so thanks for the talk. I think it's very great. So my name is Bani. I have a questions about the scope of the growth team. So I think my main question is, do we need a growth team? Because I think when we speak about growth, mostly we talk about the acquisition part of the product. While generally speaking, when people talk about growth, they also speak about engagement, retention, building habit, which I think if you think about it, most product teams and most engineers are building features that keeping users engaged so that users are retained, right? So in that case, in most business, most product and engineers are growth team because they are working on features or something that keeps people retained and engaged. So in that case, my question is, do we need like growth team? Because from my experience, in a lot of companies, when they have a growth team, mostly they only work on the acquisition side. They work with sales, marketing, SEO, etc. But when they are talking about specific features, they are not growth team. But in my opinion, they are also working on the growth of the product. That's my question. Should I throw this back?
Just keep it and then forward to the next question.
So I would say early in Product, we were just one initial team that was kind of part of our DNA doing the PLG. So if you're a small startup, this is something that you are thinking about the engagement. You're thinking about how to kind of build really great experiences, right? When you're growing as a company, there is a point of time that there are some teams that they are kind of, I like to say that they're using sniper rifle because they are actually know what they need to build. They have a customer feedback and they need to build this functionality because users, they really need it, right? So if you kind of also can incorporate that product team PLG thinking, this is really great. But doing as I think Andre mentioned is that there is might be different agenda. So for some of the functionality, for example, billing or signups, you would need a growth team for it. So I would say it's also about the culture. So if you can spread the culture, PLG culture in your company, that every team is actually thinking about, hey, we just built a new feature, and now let's think about how to onboard people into it or how to announce it in the product. So this is really great. And how the growth team might help is at some point it can actually convert into maybe the platform team. For example, you can provide some libraries that you're maintaining. You're kind of providing some building blocks for those teams that they can easily use it and build those experience in their own domain.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, and that sometimes it is being synonymous with the acquisition. But there are three components to grow from my perspective. So the first one is we call that new business, right? That's the acquisition part. That's how much new money that you're acquiring. The second part is retention, like what those subscriptions that you got, how long are you able to return them? And the third section or the focus area is expansions. How good you are in expanding those existing subscriptions. So I wasn't really I was never into like marketing or copy, as was mentioned before. So the lead gen part was not for me. What like our growth initiatives were mostly focused on was or were the retentions and expansions. Like how if I we were facing a lot of churn in past, right? People were using session replay and they were going after a couple of months, and they may return after a couple of months, or they may not. So that was a problem. So we were always like trying to figure out how do we retain, how do we change the product so we retain that money that we acquired for a significant amount of money as well. And alongside that, we were always trying to figure out how do we expand. So the retention part, you can retain better with usually more people are using your product in companies, the better, right? In our case, we were mostly at risk when a single person or a small team was using the product. It was if that team was gone, or if that single person decided that they want to try another thing, the subscription was gone as well. If we were able to expand into multiple teams or multiple departments, it became a lot more stable. So that was our focus. A lot of growth initiatives were focused on expanding SmartLook to all the other teams. And we were not even focused on expanding the subscription size. We were really just focused on how many people are using SmartLook across that company, because we knew that if more people are using it, we will retain that subscription not for 12 months, but maybe for 5 years, which creates that long tail creates huge gains in startups, in SaaS startups. And later on, once we figured this out, just for some segments, we were also focusing on how do we expand those subscriptions. And at the end of the day, SmartLook was like 50-50. 50% of growth was new biz, but 50% of growth was generated through retention improvements and expansions. So yes, you're right. Growth is not only about the acquisitions, but it's also that inside of a product part. And it's up to your company, how important that is. But for me, that was my thing.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions here?
Hey. Hey. I'm Marek. I work for one of the companies residing on the highway. And my question is, I would like to get back to the trial question. And I think like that's pretty common in the companies. Like, should we do trials? Should we do money back guarantees? Should we do pre-out? Should we do like free trials and so on? So can you guide us through the thought process? Like, how would you actually make the decision in your company?
So I would pose a question like, what do you want your customer to experience, in first 10 to 60 days? Like, do you want them experience the product easily without them having to worry about, the credit card and maybe even, processing the refund for them? They may not have the visibility in terms of how easy that process will be, or you want them just to show the product almost immediately, right? So that's one of the decisions that should drive this, right? So if you are really confident in your product and you know that the likelihood of a refund and the likelihood of that person not liking the product is little, then I would go the better stack way. I didn't have that confidence in SmartLook. I knew that a lot of people will not like it.
Yeah, I agree. I think to some extent it depends on the product. For instance, since we call your phone when the website goes down, people are sort of used to pay for phone calls. So if the app is supposed to call you, you are not that reluctant to enter a credit card. Now, I would play devil's advocate here, which is if you have a new user coming to your product, typically they give you the most attention on the very first session, right? When they sign up, they go through the onboarding, they play with the tool, they form an opinion, and they might come back. But it's never like the first impression. The first impression with self-serve SaaS products really matters. And then if you can sustain refund costs something actually. It is not that it can be 2%, 3% out of the entire amount. So you can lose a lot of money on refunds. But to your point, if the math adds up and you're pretty sure that this customer is very likely to work out, and they give you all this attention on the very first session, just ask them for the credit card, because it's not about when you charge them actually. It's about when they enter the credit card, because that's painful. Typically with B2B software, it's not you paying for that Slack or Zoom subscription, it's the company paying for the Zoom subscription. Do you really care about $30? Be honest, right? But what you care about is that no one wants to enter a credit card. So I sort of trade that attention, and I care about that attention more than I care about the price point. I think actually charging $1 can be a very similar signal to charging, say, $30.
Yeah, and again, this is product dependent, because in SmartLook, if you go there for the first time, the first thing you need to do is to deploy the SDK, as we call it. You need to implement our software into the website, which is a major blocker. And until you do that, and until you record the first few things, you don't see value, right? So we are a different kind of product, and it's always product dependent. That's what I'm saying. So it would be kind of harsh, to ask them for the credit card, and then you show them the implementation code, and they quite often need to go to a software engineer that will put it for the implementation up to the next sprint. Maybe it works different.
Like I would be just wondering if we have seen some drop on the pay gate, like where users were actually forced to enter their credit card details. Do you have any clarity around it, like Alexei? When we were implementing billing, like and subscriptions, like do we have any evidence that let's say people were dropping before that step of entering a credit card?
I don't have exactly the numbers, but there was some hesitance about that, if it's really worth to pay for the product. So I would say that for me, the decision is should be coming kind of from the execs or from the product managers. And what I think is that if the trial or freemium is better, it depends on maybe complexity of your product. So if you have really fast path to the aha moment, maybe the trial is good enough for you. If you have like really complex product, then probably the freemium or usage base is more suitable for this case.
So I just found out we're on a panel about product-led growth. So actually, this is very interesting. So if I have a product that needs to be enabled by adding a JavaScript pixel into my website, and I'm a growth hacker on the team, the number one thing going in my head is, okay, what is the integration partner that I can integrate with to exchange the integration for one click? And I'll give you like two or three that come to mind. The first one would be Shopify Marketplace, where exactly, or HubSpot, or Google Tag Manager, or Segment.io, or say even Cloudflare these days have apps where you can integrate with their marketplace, and they might take a cut of your revenue, but you squish the integration journey from like free deployments by your engineer. Suddenly, it's a task that can be done by a marketer, and you wouldn't think about this as, oh, this is growth hacking, this is product-led growth, but no, this is the best example we mentioned tonight, actually.
Yeah, I agree. We are on Segment, for example, and HubSpot as well. So it gets a bit trickier with mobile apps.
Thank you, guys. And yeah, we might have space for last question, very short one, and then we'll move to the networking part. So, is there any? No. So perfect. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for joining us online. This was a growth panel. I hope that you have learned something new, or we managed to answer at least portion of your questions. If you still have any, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us, or follow us on LinkedIn or whatever you want, like any communication channel. We will try to answer as many questions as you might have. So thank you very much again for coming, and yeah, that's it for today.